Welcome back, everybody. It is January 1st of 2024, and this is episode 61 of What Is on My Desk. Now, before we jump over and take a look at things at the desk right off the top, I want to wish everybody out there a happy new year. Hopefully 2023 was good for you, and 2024 will be better. I don't have anything new to really show you. I don't have any new products. I have no new books. I haven't really bought anything in the past month. It's Christmas. I've been buying for others. Didn't really buy any model stuff. I don't know if I have anything new coming up in the next little while. I don't have any plans to go out and buy any new kits anytime soon. I have the new kinetic tutor kit. I have at least one on order, and I'm going to try to get at least 3 total. So when those do show up, I'll do a review on those. But other than that, and I believe that's in the March time frame now when those are supposed to release. Other than that, I don't have any new kits on the horizon. Nothing scheduled, nothing planned. So we'll see what happens to pop up in the future. Before we swing over, there's progress. I was able to find some time to work on the kits. You'll see I didn't really get anything done in the Lincoln. I'll just quickly show you where things are for those who haven't missed last month or just forgot the status. I will update and just kind of, again, show you where I am, but I haven't really done any work on that. I've been focusing on the other ones, trying to get them done. So that being said, let's get swung over. We'll take a quick look at where we are. So this will be a shorter video. And before we jump into that, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. So here we are back at the desk for another one of my monthly updates. So we'll take a quick look at the progress. Like I mentioned here, a couple seconds ago, I guess. I did get some progress done on these kits. I've been focusing on the two F80, mainly the two F82s, but I got some work done on the Mosquito, and the Lincoln I actually haven't touched at all. I don't think. I might have done some minor sanding, but I don't on the wings. I don't think I touched anything at all. I'll still kind of show you where the status is, just so you can see all 4 kits. And for those who may have forgot or didn't see last month's update, you'll still get an idea of where I am on that kit. But I'm not going to go into too much detail. So we'll start with the F82E, and it is, for the most part, it's pretty much ready for the first coat of primer. So here it is. You'll see I got the canopies glued on. That's where most of my work has been in the past little while, was getting the canopies and everything ready, glued on, and getting everything cleaned up and ready to go for paint. They're not perfect. They suffer from some issues, specifically just relating to the potato-ish quality of this kit. So they don't really want to fit very well. There's large, massive gaps at the back where they just don't want to fit properly. Getting the little internal piece fitted properly was not easy. So it's taken a lot of effort, with especially a lot of white glue, to just fill gaps and try to make it look somewhat presentable. I'm not too terribly worried. To be perfectly honest, it's going to be sitting on a stand, and you're not going to get too close to it. But just looking at it now, there's still a few little things. There's a bubble I've noticed that's come out back here with the white glue. I got to clean up. There's a couple of little spots in between the 2 canopies that could use another layer of white glue. But other than that, all through here doesn't look bad. There's a little bit of bubbling here I can try to clean up. But just get some more white glue in there and just make sure it dries and seams. But other than that, the actual fitting of the clear parts, I'm pretty happy with, to be honest. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it could be, and I will take it for the most part. So the next step, after I clean up this little bit here around this canopy, is a bit more white glue. After that, I'm going to hit it with a coat of primer. There's nothing else I need to mask on, at least on this one. So I'm going to hit it with a coat of primer, and then I can start checking these seams through there, all through in here, specifically under here. Like I got to make sure all these seams are starting to look good. So I'm going to, well, yeah, no, that's right. Anyways, so I got to go through and get a coat of primer on here and just make sure that a lot of these seams, like I can start to see here where I've painted the cockpit green, these seams look really nice. But I got to get the rest of them done. The tops of the tails, the fuselage seams all along the tail wheel here, the doghouse fuselage joint all underneath the cowlings, especially these intakes here. I got to get a coat of primer and I got to check what all of this looks like. So I can know if there's any other work to do. So once I get that first coat of primer on and I'm happy with what the seams look like, and there's not a lot of puttying left, then I can go ahead and start gluing in the horizontal stab. This is the one from the E model, but I mean from the G model, but it's the same, so it doesn't really matter. But you can see I gotta get this glued in, and it's gonna be a bit of effort because I'm going to have to. I might have mentioned this on a video already, but I'm gonna have to squeeze the rear fuselages. I don't have a clamp big enough, so I'm gonna have to like make up. I'm gonna double clamp it. I've played with this already in the past on how this is gonna work, and my solution has been to do something like this, and then you get this kind of where you want it, and then you clamp with the other clamp. That. And that's my Jimmy rigged solution for making sure that this fits properly. But already I can see problems with like, this isn't actually fitting properly. It looks like I got to drill the holes out on that a little bit. So I mean, there's work that still has to be done. This is by no means ready for paint. It's going to be hit it with a coat of primer, make sure I'm happy with the seams. I've still got to get the horizontal stab glued in. I've got to get the radiator intakes glued in and cleaned up. I've got the wings that I have taken off the sprues. So I got to get these assembled, get the seams cleaned up, and then get these mounted into here. And already they don't really fit very well. There's quite a bit of cleanup I got to do, and angles, and I got to make sure the dehydral is right, and I got to figure that out and play with angles here. And anyways, so primer, check seams. If I'm happy with that, glue in the horizontal stab. I just realized there's a giant seam down here that I got to clean up. I'm gonna have to start marking stuff with some red. There's a giant seam through here I got to clean up. I got to clean that up. Yeah. So I gotta, again, hit it with some primer, clean up these seams that I know I have a bit of cleanup to do, and then I gotta glue the horizontal stab in, get those seams cleaned up, get these wings glued together, get them glued on, get those seams cleaned up, get the doghouse, the radiator intakes glued on, get those seams cleaned up. I gotta get these rear exhaust doors cleaned up. I kind of went into that with the G in the past. It's a mess. I got to get those cleaned up and glued on, and then I'm basically ready for paint. But before I can paint it, I still have to drill a hole and figure out how I'm mounting this to a base. It's probably going to be on one side, but either way, I gotta drill a hole for the base and the stand and the wire and get that figured out, and the angle that I want to do that on, and get that sorted, and then I can paint. So I'm still quite a bit of work away from being ready to paint this. And then even then, with the paint, there's still all the other gloss, decals, weathering. I'm probably gonna weather. No, you know what? This one's probably not gonna be weathered very much because there's more of a showbird. The other one will be weathered. But yeah, so there's still a lot of work. And then the props have to be assembled. The spinners have to be assembled. I have no idea how all that's going to go together in terms of quality, so there's work. The G model, a very similar stage. Again, I've been focusing. I kind of got the E model done first, and then once I was happy with that, I moved on to the G, and I got that done. So I have the vacuum form glued in, and I made up my own. I think I might have shown last month. I hope I did, because if not, I've used them already. I made my own. Yes, I did show you I made my own maskings out of vinyl, and the shape of these vacuum form kits are slightly different than the kit parts. So the same vinyl masking that I used on that I used on this, they didn't quite fit. So I had to kind of play with it a little bit and make everything work. But I did. So I got that kind of down, the masking on. I masked off the cockpits, cleaned everything up. You'll see this side. I've masked the back in here. You'll see there's this little semicircle piece of masking tape. That's the area underneath the canopy. So when you look through the canopy, you can see this rear section of fuselage. So I've painted it interior green and then masked it. So when you look through the canopy, you'll see green, but when you look from the outside, you won't see it. This side, I haven't masked yet because I needed to clean up this seam a little bit before I could tell when I painted the green, I could tell that needed some cleanup. So I was able to mask that. That I had to wait for a little later. And I also did quite a bit of cleanup around the forward areas of these vacuum form canopies to blend everything in. But it's looking really good. And just like the other one, I'm very happy with it. So all I have left to do on this is just cut and install that piece of masking tape back here to mask off this little rear area. And then I can, same as the other kit, hit it with primer. I got to mask off the wheel wells. I still got to mask off the wheel wells. I haven't quite figured out how I'm doing that yet. I have a feeling I'm just going to use bits of tape and just press it in, but I have to still do that. And the wheel well back here has to be jammed full of Kleenex. And then I can hit it with primer. And then I can go over all the seams. I just put a bit more putty on here. I was checking a few spots and I knew there were some areas that needed some work. So I had a bit more putty on some of these seams, but it's starting to, I think it's really good. I feel like I might have most of it knocked out already. So again, mask off that rear bit, mask off the wheel wells, hit it with primer. I got the canopies, the main canopies done as well. I'm not taking them off the clippy thing until I'm done painting, just for my own sanity, because I don't want to lose them or break them. But that has been painted with the interior color, so they're ready for paint. But yeah, hit this with a very similar to the E. Mask that off, hit it with a coat of primer, check all the seams, make sure I'm happy with, the seams as they are. And then I got to install my horizontal stab, which I can show you again on this one. I think I drilled the holes out on this one so it fits a bit tighter, but you can still see there's some significant seamage happening in here. So I'm going to have to go through and clean up. What happens if I flip it? Does it change the angle of the openings? Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, it doesn't really change anything. So anyways, I got to get that installed, clamp it, glue it, make sure it's solid, clean up all of these seams. I still haven't taken the wings off of the sprues yet for this one. So I got to cut those off. Same as the E, get them assembled, make sure the angles all line up. I've been doing some sanding on the radar pod to try to knock out some of those 3D printing ridges. It's looking a little bit better, but it still has quite a bit of work to go on it before I think it's going to be ready and finished. Again, a coat of primer will help hide a lot of that, but it's pretty rough. So I've been putting some thin layers of putty and just gently sanding, and I'm trying to clean it up, and then I'll hit it with primer probably the same time I hit the fuselage with primer, and at least get a coat of primer on that, and then it'll be one of the last things I install. I'm probably not going to glue this on until this has its landing gear glued on, or at least very close to it. It's going to be well after painting and everything before I start gluing this on, but we'll see. I just don't want to knock it off in the process of assembly. So we're getting a lot closer on that. Still quite a bit of work before I'm ready for paint. I was hoping, I kind of had a moment a few weeks ago where I'm like, hey, maybe I'll have these things primed by my video. And now I'm looking at it, I've got at least another couple of weeks, especially at the pace I've been working, a couple more weeks before these things are ready for a first coat of primer. Hopefully my my Feb 1 video will have those primed, but even then that's a long shot. So moving to the Mosquito, some more work has been done on this. Not a whole lot, but some. The nacelles are glued on. That's a big step on this. So it's ready almost to the point where it's ready for primer as well. So nacelles are glued on. I used Mr. Surfacer along a lot of these inside seams. I cleaned up a lot of that so there's not as many gaps. The forward half of the nacelles actually went on quite nicely. There's very few seams. I just hit a little bit of sandpaper in here just to knock off a little step. Back here was pretty bad where the nacelle meets the wing. You can see how much putty I required on this side in order to clean that up. I'll know more when I hit that with primer. But yeah, really all I have left to do on this is I mask off the wheel wells in the Bombay. Just a little bit of masking tape and some Kleenex, mask that off. I'm going to install the lower little clear part, mask that, mask the rear, jam a bit of Kleenex down inside the radiators as well as the cockpit door. Put the cover on here. I'll probably use some of that putty on the top of the ammo cases just to hold that piece in place so it doesn't pop off. And then I can hit it with a coat of primer. Oh, wingtips. I've glued the wingtips on. I've cleaned up those seams. I just have to hit it with a little bit of fine sandpaper. There's a few stuff I got to hit with some fine sandpaper before I prime. But that's basically it. So masking, a quick fine sandpaper hit just to knock down the worst of the scratches. And then when I hit it with a coat of primer, and just like the F82s, check the seams, make sure I'm happy with everything. It's going to be sitting on its wheels, so I'm not terribly worried too much under here. If there's a couple of little, oopsies, I can live with it. But I want the top to look clean. And then once that's done, it's pretty much, I got the horizontal stabs. I'm going to glue them on after primer. And there's a few other little things I'll have to put on after the primer coat before I do the final paint. But like I said, I'll do those later. And then once that is on, it's easy. It's all black, same as the F82G. So I'm hoping to paint this at the same time I paint the G, because it's going to be roughly the same colors. I'll basically be using a dark gray, pre-shade with black, hit it with a really dark gray color to look like faded black, but you still get some variation in the color because of the pre-shading. And then I can move on from there. So that's the plan for the G as well. This, again, it's a Tamiya kit, so short of a few little issues, which I'm sure are most likely my own fault, it goes together quite nicely. And I've been focusing on the F82 and the E and the G, and I just kind of pull this out. I'm like, oh yeah, let's glue these on. Snap. Okay, that's easy. No real effort is involved. So this is kind of my my sanity check. I take the time to work on this when I'm getting overwhelmed on the F82s and I need a break, because it just falls together. As I mentioned though, the Lincoln, I haven't done anything at all on the Lincoln, so the fuselage, it's still in two pieces. It's just taped together here, just so it looks cool. But this, it's pretty much ready for primer. I think I'm gonna wipe it down with some alcohol, but I think whenever I prime those, I'm gonna hit this with a coat of primer as well. Again, just to kind of see where I'm at, get a good sanity check for where I am. I know I have to go through here with a little bit of Mr. Surfacer on both sides and clean up that seam, but I'll do that probably whenever I'm working on this seam. I'll clean up that seam. But yeah, so it's, I think, like a wipe down with some alcohol, mask off this rear door, and then I'm going to hit it with a coat of primer and just get a good feel for where I am. So that's been sitting here kind of waiting for that point. The wings, again, I haven't really touched. I may have done some sanding on them. I can't quite remember what level, like stage they were a month ago. I've cleaned up these seams here. They need a bit of putty. I haven't done any sanding on these outer nacelles. I have to get in here with some sandpaper or some angled. I've got my little triangle file with it. I can get the corner in here nice, and I can make sure I sand out that corner. So I kind of have to go through and do that. Again, I'm not going to go too crazy on this because you're not really going to be able to see down inside of that. But I just got to go through. I just got to go through it like this. Again, I think a lot of this is going to be based off of what it looks like after a coat of primer. So I think other than just some light sanding for my own sanity and kind of knowing that I've done something to clean it up, I just got to hit it with primer. I know there's going to be work in here. I know there's work in here. I know there's work throughout here. Again, there's massive... Oh, that's popped. Oh, nuts. But yeah, there's massive seams in there that need to be cleaned up. Now that I know that that's popped, I can actually clamp it. I was trying to clamp this before, and you can't actually clamp here because of the angle. Everything just slides off. So I'm having to put a piece of sandpaper, grit side down, and then use the clamp over the sandpaper so that my clamp doesn't slide off instantly when I clamp it. But yeah, so I definitely need to get in here and like sand or glue and see, there you go. It doesn't want to stay. But yeah, I got to get in here and I got to start like this. I got to spend a bit of time on these things and just go through and make sure that everything is nice and tight. And then just don't look at it. If you don't look at it, see, it's not. There we go. If you don't look at it, it's not going to pop off. Anyways, I just got to go through and do that. I got to clean these up. I got to just hit it with a coat of, like, I know, for, like I said on the other wing, this whole seam here needs a bit more putty. This needs a bit more putty. The top might be okay. All of this all needs to be cleaned up. All of this in here. All of that needs to be cleaned up. But I think the big thing is it's so hard to tell where I am with things until I get a coat of primer on it. So I think I'm just going to do a little bit of work in here, a little bit of work on these nacelles with these seams, clean that up as best as I can, mask everything off, and then just hit it with a coat of primer. And I might, fingers crossed, be able to do that when I'm priming everything else, because there really isn't much left to do other than a little bit of sanding, some puttying along these nacelles, and then I'm just gonna hit it with primer. And then I know where I need to clean up. Any of the raised panel lines and stuff to be sanded off, in through here that needs putty, all that kind of stuff. I'll just have to wait until there's primer and I can see more, because there's just too much going on. There's too many colors, there's too many shadows, there's too many angles. It's just too hard to see what needs work and what doesn't. So yeah, that's the plan with that. Hopefully I can get some primer on this the next time. Did that just shift? I can get some primer on this at the same time I prime everything else. This clamp is just sliding off the wing as I'm watching it. What happens if I clamp it and then clamp the clamp? Can I clamp the clamp? Can I like get another clamp in here and stop that clamp from sliding? Because this is ridiculous. How am I supposed to clamp this down when the clamp just wants to slide? I know I'm doing everything off camera right now, but I'm just frustrated. So there. Got it a little farther down so it's less of an angle, and hopefully that holds. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. I gotta do some puttying around these nacelles, clean up what I can clean up. I'm not gonna go too crazy. Hit it with primer, and then I can just go over it all again. Putty what I gotta putty, sand what I gotta sand, clean it up. It's just like with the I actually hit the fuselage with the black paint when I painted the cockpit, and that gave me enough to be able to see what needed more work. I gotta do the same with the wings. I gotta get some color down to be able to see what needs work, so I can go through and pick out and putty and clean up what I got to clean up. And then, I mean, I've still got to remask, because you can see here's the new aileron shape for the Lincoln. So I got to continue that through here somewhere. And then the flap continues out to here and meets the aileron. So I got to rescribe all of that and figure out how that's going to work. And then I got to kind of rescribe some of these panel lines through, you know, continue some through here. This is going to come all the way through. And then I got to make some stuff up in here to make it look interesting. And the same at the top. I'm going to have to, like, that's going to butt up to here. The aileron is going to come through to like here. And then I'll probably make like a panel line in here somewhere. And then a panel line, you know, across here somewhere. You know, this one can come across, you know, and then I'm going to make it up. I'm just going to have to make up my own. The same with the fuselage. Just gonna have to make up my own panel lines for the most part and just make it look interesting. So again, I'm not gonna have this Lincoln finished anywhere on the same timeline as the other kits, but if I can get the fuselage primed and happy with it, and get these wings primed and be happy with it by the time I finish those 3 kits, then I'm good. Because then I can move on and do a lot of the other stuff with this kit, with the Lincoln kit, as I'm working on my next round of kits. So on that note, I'm going to kind of wrap it up there. I guess I've been rambling on these kits a lot longer than I expected to. But that wraps that up. In terms of what you can expect on the channel in the next little bit, I've got the next RCAF histories coming out in the middle of the month. I have some more content, some more built model videos coming out. I got a couple more videos from Airshow London, some of the performers from Airshow London coming out. So that's coming up this month. And then as we go through the winter, I'll be doing a couple more performers from Airshow London, and then performers from Gatineau. I'll be putting those up. And like I said, I've got a lot of built models I can make my way through. And then as soon as I start getting primer on these, I'm going to do part 1 of the time-lapse build. So those are going to start coming out early in 2024 as well. So that's kind of where we stand. As I mentioned on the other video, which you guys won't see for a little while, but we're only 6 months away from the Quinty Air Show. So 6 months, and I'm still going to start having air show content again. So we're getting a lot closer to that, and as always, I'm just going to fill the space with what I can fill. I'd like to get back to the Aviation Museum again, do another video or 2 on that, see what I can find over there that needs, especially with the RCAF 100th. I know they've done some work in the museum and moved some stuff around. I'd like to get over and do some filming on the Avro Aero, do some filming on potentially the CF100, the CL84 Dynavert. I'd love to get some work done on the HE162 Salamander. The Buffalo is now on display in the reserve hangar. Get over and see that. So there's quite a bit of content I can still do over at the Aviation Museum. I just have to actually get over there and do it. So anyways, I said I want to wrap up this video, so let's wrap it up. On that, thank you everybody for watching. And hopefully, as always, if you enjoy, down below, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we will see you all the next time.